Hey guys, how's it going? Allie Marie here with My Catholic Perspective. I am still pregnant, 38 weeks this week, and ready to meet our little new bundle of joy. And within being pregnant, I have been thinking a lot, like within these last few weeks, about children and the stress that a lot of people experience by them, and how our society, with the idea of abortion and everything, has kind of labeled children as inconveniences. And furthermore, just different conversations and memes that I've seen, and just a slew of ordeals that has really got me thinking, what is it in our culture that makes it seem that children are inconvenient? How does that play out? So I had asked on Facebook or on Instagram, what's the hardest part of parenthood for you? And I got a whole slew of responses, whether it was back-to-back messes, or if it had to do with dying to self or not having quiet time. There was lack of sleep was in there, someone being task-oriented, comparing oneself to other mothers, always putting other people's needs before their own, just overall balancing everything. So there are a lot of different things. And I was just sitting there thinking about it, and I finally, through the grace of the Holy Spirit, can see kids are interruptions. That is what it all boils down to. So interruption, by definition, is to stop the continuous progress of an activity or process, or to make something stop for a short period. So children, in general, even longed for, wished for children, are interruptions, without a negative connotation necessarily. A lot of times interruption, it is a very negative thing, right? Nobody wants to be interrupted. But children interrupt a continuous process. I am a certified massage therapist. I am craniosacral therapist. I thoroughly enjoy the work that I do when I practice. When I was about 24 weeks pregnant with Evelyn, the time came to renew my licensure, and I opted to not renew after I had been practicing for about 5 years. So while I was fully anticipating being a stay-at-home mom, I was so anxious to have children, to start having children, to move forward in that part of my life. My daughter was still an interruption to my continuous renewal of my licensure. So since October of 2018, I have not been a licensed massage therapist. I have not practiced massage or craniosacral therapy since then. And it has made something stop for a period of time. It has stopped the continuous progress of an activity or process. So while I love our daughter, while I have found, thanks be to God, so much grace in motherhood that He has granted, there has still been that interruption process. A lot of these things that people have listed have been true for me. Back-to-back messes, I'll show you right there. That comes from a bin. We are in a constant state. I do my best to embrace the mess around here and just say, you know what? It doesn't need to be clean. I can try and we can clean it up, but one of the things is when I do clean, I try to clean in front of Evelyn, and so she sees me putting things away. So she is, at 19 months old, already good with putting stuff back up in her room. I can ask her to pick her crayons up off the floor and put them on her table, and she does. And so I think being that example to our children is very instilling and helps guide what we're supposed to be instilling in them. If only I could teach my cat to not meow. Oh my gosh. I get more frustrated with a cat than I ever do with kids. Maybe that's where I need more grace. My goodness, I hate his interruptions. They drive me crazy. So maybe my relation to everyone being irritated with their children can be my irritation with our cats. Oh. Anyway, so it's ultimately, how do we overcome irritation to these interruptions? How do we accept what these interruptions look like? Because they are going to be continuous. Children are, especially with the whole age of reason being below 8, like nothing that they're doing is inherently wicked or evil. They are they're innocent. They don't have a cognitive ability to discern, like, oh, when I take my teapot and hit it against my dad's head, like, that I could hurt him. And we teach, we say, oh, you need to be gentle and utilize rewards and potential punishments. I don't know, what punishments do we even do with Evelyn at this point? She's really fairly good. We do a lot of positive reinforcement. I think I've had to like sit her in timeout maybe once or twice, and I actually have her sit on my lap for her timeouts. And I say, nope, you're going to be staying right here just for a minute. We need to kind of take a break and take a breath. But remaining calm in that and not allowing her emotions to feed into mine, and being careful of how that works. And I'm sure that some of my massage training from they call it transference and countertransference is a term that they use, where we can either allow our emotions to go like to affect somebody else or allow their emotions to affect us. And so I've learned that boundary on how to be careful with that, and it's something that I could recommend to you to look into for how to practice. I'd be happy to do like a full how-to on that specific topic. But I do want to talk about, because this is like, how do we accept interruptions? And I think for me, and what I would encourage for anybody, is to look through your life and look at a time that you had to accept something. Whether it was a serious illness of yourself, whether it was a serious illness of somebody else, whether it was a death of somebody close to you, whether it was getting fired from a job that meant a lot to you, getting a terrible grade on a paper that you thought that you were going to do amazing with, anything that was devastating that you had to accept. I would encourage you to take a look at that and see how you are able to come to acceptance with that. Now, that being said, it is possible that it has not been processed. It is possible that, enough journaling hasn't taken place, or perhaps like a counselor needed to have been sought and still needs to be sought. We go through life and learn coping mechanisms to all of the things that we have to accept in life. And so underneath anger is hurt. Like the root of anger is hurt. And so when we are hurting on the inside, it is a lot easier to yell or get upset or get frustrated than it is to cry. That's, some women just cry a lot. But ultimately it is more about being like feeling hurt, and that's tears, not in manipulation. I do know some mothers who like they cry to get their children to do what they want, and that is also just not a healthy, like we have to be careful that we're instilling healthy habits in our children, and we are bringing them up in a godly manner. So these interruptions are interesting because like Christ, right, in Matthew 19, when he blesses the children, verses 13 through 15, I think it's interesting because a lot of people like will quote Jesus on how he says, "Let the children come to me and do not hinder them, for such belongs the kingdom of heaven." And then there's the other verse in chapter 18 that he talks about, you must become as a child because this is who the kingdom belongs to, or whatever he says there. But prior to him saying, "Let the children come to me," I think that the previous verse 13, Matthew 19, verse 13, I think it gets neglected because when I read it, I didn't necessarily remember it, because Christ is actually rebuking his disciples when he says this. He's not saying it to the crowd like, "Hey, send the kids up, like let me give them a blessing," like at Mass when they have all the children come. This is actually the children, like people brought their children with them, and it says the disciples rebuked the people. Or in another version it said the disciples spoke sternly to the people. And that's when Jesus said, "Let the children come to me. It's fine." And I tell you what, I can almost guarantee it was not, Jesus wasn't like, okay, children, single file, now be quiet. I'm talking to Timmy now. Ben, you need to wait. And Ashley, I'll get to you in just a second. Like, no, kids are rambunctious. They're excited. They're like screaming and yelling. And we want to contain that. I think that as adults, we have learned to have so much control over what we're projecting out into the world, and it's even exemplified further with social media as far as how am I supposed to post, what filters am I supposed to use. Overexposure is in right now, so I shouldn't post anything if I want to be recognized. And we are so conditioned in so many ways that I think are very subconscious, and so we end up projecting that onto children, being like, well, they, when my husband and I sit down for dinner and Evelyn's there eating with us, eventually she starts screaming, like, undoubtedly. She starts making noise. She's like excited. She's feeling full. She's happy. She's like ready to start playing and everything else. And it like, it's like, Evelyn, it's a little too loud if you can just, but sometimes, like, I don't mean to point my finger at my husband or anything. He works all day, right? And he's not me. So, but he'll get frustrated. He'll be like, Evelyn, stop yelling. It's just like, she's fine. She's a kid. She doesn't know what she's doing. This is how she knows how to express her emotions. Like, and so that acceptance, again, so that's an interruption, right? Because we're trying to talk. This is an interruption. So how do we accept that interruption for what it is instead of getting angry? And I think a part of that is like, it is just through acceptance. And I think, I guess I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know how to teach how to experience exception. They're two different words. But like, I don't know how to actually teach somebody like how to accept, other than looking back to scriptures and looking to the saints. So those are two things for me. My favorite Bible verse that I have on my Instagram, I just like reference it, is Ecclesiastes 3 verse 12, which says, I know there is nothing better for men than to be happy and do good while they live. But prior to that, starting with Ecclesiastes chapter 3, it's that passage about there being a time for everything, that there is a season for every activity under heaven. And so there's a time to be born, a time to die, time to plant, and a time to uproot. And it goes on, with probably 12 things here, maybe more. And then he says here in verse 11, he has made everything beautiful in its time. And so when we start looking at, when I was talking about encouraging you to kind of look back in your life, think about a time where you had to face acceptance for something that you didn't necessarily want. That's why. Like, God makes all things beautiful in His time. For me, a lot of, like, if you follow my channel, you know this already about me, but like, I had a brain tumor and had to have brain surgery. My brother died 2 days after my brain surgery, and a guy who I thought was gonna like propose in my recovery, because it was around Christmas time and I'd been seeing him for a while, like, thought he was gonna propose. He like found a new girlfriend and was off to the races with her all in the same week. So it was a very difficult time for me, and I had to do a lot of work to process all of that. And so I think for me, that particular experience has probably helped me understand that I don't have control over my life. And that's ultimately what happens with children, is that we no longer like have full control about everything. Like, Evelyn is napping right now. She could wake up at any moment and it would be an interruption to my recording. But there's just that acceptance of saying, okay, well, I did what I could and we're just gonna move forward with it and it'll be great and God's will be done with what is present now. And so there is that like letting go, but there's just looking at, how do I accept that I don't have control over my life? How do I accept that, I am a very task-oriented person, personally. If you've ever heard of Strength Finders, achiever is in my top, which means that I like to make lists and check those things off the list every day. Back when I was single, I used to have my morning routine typed up to the minute. That I was out of bed at 5:30. At 5:32, the coffee was being made. At 5:37, I was letting the dogs out. At 5:45, I was sitting down on the couch for an hour of reading, and like literally by the minute, I had my whole morning mapped out. And there is a level of acceptance that I had to do to say, okay, well, I can't get up at 5:30 anymore because I would be exhausted and sleep deprived all the time. And I can't map out my stuff to the minute because I have a daughter and I'm going to have more children. And it's the continuous progress of an activity or process has totally been interrupted, that my life has changed. And so now, and I experienced that when I was diagnosed with a brain tumor, because I had been training for a triathlon. And I could have really gotten frustrated, and because the steroids caused me to gain weight, and it was just really, a lot of the stuff around that time was very disappointing for me, and I could have really pushed myself and really made it so that I still competed and did all of these things and really pushed myself to the limit and overexerted. But my body wasn't there. I had to be patient, and I had to just accept that I had these new normals. And new normals are hard. Especially probably if a real new normal has never been experienced. And so perhaps for a lot of people, children are that first drastic new normal. And I don't know if for me, since I had such a significant new normal back in 2014 when all of that happened, I don't know if that just prepared me to accept, like I said, that I don't have control over my life, and that there is a season for everything. Like, God makes everything beautiful in His time, that He is utilizing a lot of my toil in that time to work into my motherhood, that I would be okay with these interruptions because they honestly seem mild. I just don't struggle with some of these things, just because it's the living room's a mess, and I just spent 10 minutes cleaning it up, or I spent a half hour or an hour cleaning last night. I spent 45 minutes washing the dishes, and now I have to make dinner and make all these dirty dishes again. Or there are all these things that's just this continual ordeal. And right now, being 38 weeks pregnant, I think I maybe struggle a little bit more, because it's yesterday I was on my feet too long, and now my ankles are swollen, and I was really trying to avoid it this pregnancy. But I think that having those new normals and learning proper coping mechanisms with it, learning how to remain at peace. Saint Anne is Evelyn's middle name. It's Evelyn Anne. Saint Anne is the patron saint of naughty children. And I have been asking her to pray for us, and had a relationship with her ever since I was pregnant with Evelyn. And Evelyn is just the sweetest little girl in the world. She's I think she probably does require a lot of attention. I don't know, but I'm present with her for it. And she goes through 3 outfits a day some days, and I just don't mind. And there are just a lot of things that happen that I feel like I could probably get easily frustrated over. A lot of people have said, oh, well, you have an easy child. And it's I might. I'm not really sure, to be honest. I'm half expecting to have this next child and have this child actually be a simpler child. And, that Evelyn actually did need a lot of attention, that I did have to hold her a lot. And, but it was just simply that I didn't mind, that it just seemed normal and natural. And so I just don't know how that looks, because I used to run a lot, and I haven't gone on a run in so long. And I just have learned to be okay with that. I've learned that this isn't the season for me to be in shape. I've learned that in between having children, I'm not going to work my butt off to get back into shape and lose, or like regain my muscle mass or this or that, because my body just isn't currently built for that. I'm currently nourishing, a child, and now that I'm pregnant, nourishing again, and then after the baby's born, I'll be nourishing again, and then, who knows how many subsequent pregnancies we'll be able to achieve, but it's just not the season for me to be working to be in shape. And that comparison aspect that somebody spoke on is probably fair. Like, I know for me, I deleted, 1,300 people off of Facebook because I was constantly comparing and trying to prove myself to all of these people and get likes and do this and do that. And I got to a point that I was just over it all. So if I didn't see that person in person and have an actual relationship with them, I just deleted them. And I was like, well, if I see them around, I'll see them around and we can have a conversation about how life is going. But I am done trying to prove myself to anybody, because I need to just be comfortable in my own skin, recognize that I've had faults in my past, that I will have faults in my future, but I am doing the best that I can. And whether or not anybody else sees that or wants to acknowledge it, that's totally on them, because I can feel secure in the knowledge that God has worked nothing short of a miracle in my life, that I am no longer where I was, because I used to just be not a good person at all. And I, obviously I'm not a great person now all the time. I do my best, but I used to actually be just like mean. So those are my thoughts for today. The whole idea, the kids are interruptions. It's an interruption to your life. It is what it is. It's a new normal, and finding the grace and acceptance to just accept that interruptions are the new normal, I think is probably the best way to overcome this culture of viewing children as inconveniences, because an interruption can be inconvenient, right? Like if we're working on something and then we get interrupted, it can be frustrating. Or like, I'm in the middle of this, I need to finish it right now, and then I can get to whatever you need. But interruptions don't have to be inconvenient. We can learn to embrace the interruption. We can embrace the mess. We can find a way to just rest our eyes during the lack of sleep, or, just embracing those new normals. And I still hate that cat. Max, stop meowing. But I just don't even know about this cat. We don't know why he does this, why he meows. He's not hungry. He might want to go outside. Oh, dogs are so much better. But anyway, but just not viewing the interruption as inconvenient. Like, view the interruption as an opportunity to meet your child where they are, to meet them, at the emotional maturity that they are, and allow that to cultivate your ability to accept life on life's terms every step of the way, just like as things come up, because it's not, it's not necessarily always going to be easy, but we don't need to find that frustration within the interruption, because it's really not sweating the small stuff, and this is just such a short period of time anyway. As I'm saying all this, I'm just thinking about this cat. It's I really should probably take my own advice to not get irritated about this cat. Oh, but it's funny that he's going into a fit. It's funny if you can't even hear him. I presume you can, because he is loud and obnoxious. But if it was a kid, I wouldn't even care. See, if Evelyn came running down the stairs right now, which she wouldn't, because she doesn't know how to open her door or the gate or come down the stairs by herself. But if she were to come in running, screaming, I'd be like, oh, sweetie, come here, come say hi. Because that's how she asks for attention. That's what she's doing. She doesn't know how else to do it. She can't say, Mommy, I would really like it if you could rub my arm right now. And even as she gets older, it could be hard for her to be able to express that that's what she wants. So, new normals, and be like Christ. Just accept the children as they are, screaming, running, mess making, dirt covered, everything, cut in line, me first mentality, like just, yeah, I really want to encourage you, because in this culture that we have, where you do have such a strong abortion mindset because of inconvenience, because it's, you know, the whole argument is my body, but it's really, you're saying it's my life, and I don't want my life interrupted right now. That's the argument for abortion, is I don't want to be interrupted. I don't want to have to put my career on hold. I don't want this continuous progress of the activity, of an activity or process, to be interrupted. I don't want my 20s to be interrupted. And so that's what abortion is really about. It's about not being interrupted. And so we as Catholics, we really need to find a way to like seek the grace of God, so that we aren't trying to relate with others on the level of, my kids are inconvenient and I am stressed by them, they are annoying. We don't want to be shining that light. That's not something like a mentality or disposition that I think would be encouraged by Christ. I don't think that that's like a disposition that we want to witness to the world. And so, we want to be authentic, of course. Like, I think that there is an authentic piece of sharing our struggles and joining, but I'm just not confident that social media is that place. Maybe in a small group or with a trusted confidant or a counselor, to process that, to learn how do I move past this, perhaps in prayer or journaling. Finding the right outlets for that, I think, is really important. And just allow the new normals to be okay. Allow the interruptions to just be okay, and find those coping mechanisms that work for you in your reflection of your past, for how to accept these new normals of interruptions. So God bless you. Sorry if this was a little long today. I really had a lot to say. I've been thinking about this so much. So I hope you hung in there. But I pray that God grants you the resources that you need to draw closer to Him and to those around you. And I just pray that you're able to make it a great day. And we'll see you on Sunday on Patreon if you're over there. Otherwise, next week, Thursday, we'll see you at 3. Have a great day.